Warrior, awaken. The battle begins within. Fall, acknowledge, investigate, learn, understand, and now, realign. They say a warrior's greatness is measured by the battles he wins. But what happens when he loses? Not to the enemy, but to himself. The general once commanded legions. His banners covered the horizon. Then came the day his heart trembled, and that tremor became the quake that shattered his empire. He fought bravely, but beneath the armor, doubt had already taken root. He led from fear. He commanded from pride. He fought to hold everything together. His aim, his honor, his idea of who he was, until the weight of his own expectations cracked the ground beneath him. He fell, not in battle, but within. And in the silence that followed defeat, the battlefield was covered not with bodies, but with reflection. He walked away. No army, no rank, no applause, no direction. Only the echo of his own failure marching beside him. This is where every warrior stands, when the illusion breaks. Because when the outer war quiets, the inner one begins. When the smoke cleared, he walked toward the mountains, chasing silence itself. He wandered into the high mountains, searching for something he could not name. Every step echoed a question. What remains when everything you built falls apart? Days blurred into nights until silence became the teacher. He met no one, yet felt everything. The wind, the ache in his hands, the memory of failure breathing beside him. And in that quiet, he stopped fighting what broke him. Because only when you stop running from the wound do you begin to see its design. One dawn, he found an old archer, Tenzin, standing at the cliff's edge, bow drawn toward the rising sun. The general watched as the arrow split the stillness and vanished into the light. The general asked, "What steadies your hand now?" Tenzin didn't turn. He looked toward the horizon, firmly, gaze unwavering. He said quietly, "My failures have taught me something. You can't lead with a trembling heart." The general's voice broke through the wind. "My heart was steady once, before I lost everything." Tenzin lowered the bow and said, "Then you were steady for victory, not truth. There is a difference. The bow does not aim. The archer does. When you miss, it isn't the arrow that was wrong. It was the heart behind it." For the first time in years, the general listened, not as a leader, but as a student. Tenzin handed the general the bow and said, "Aim." Hands trembling, the arrow wavered and fell short. Tenzin said nothing. Days passed. He drew again, missed again. But slowly, his breath aligned with the wind. His thoughts stilled. Until one morning, he felt the bow's curve as part of his own body. He released the arrow, and it found its mark. Not because his hands had grown stronger, but because his heart had stopped trembling. Every battle he would face from now on began within, and every victory would be won there first. He was no longer fighting to prove himself. He was one with the fight. He was realigned to his true purpose. A warrior's greatest weapon isn't skill, it's alignment. When heart, mind, and motion become one, the impossible becomes inevitable. Realignment is not a return, it is a rebirth. The fall was the preparation. The silence was the purification. Now he moves not from fear, but from truth. The general descended the mountain, not as the man who had fallen, but as the one who had found alignment. He rebuilt slowly, not his army, but his discipline. Every motion deliberate, every breath aligned with something deeper. He reclaimed not his title, but his center. The man who once aimed to prove his worth now drew from stillness itself. He was ready to lead again, but this time from stillness. The trembling heart had steadied, the archer's teaching had taken root, and in the reflection of his blade he no longer saw the general, he saw the man who had finally learned to aim. The storm that broke him has become his map. In every age, the same story repeats. When Michael Jordan stepped away from basketball, it wasn't defeat, it was exile. Baseball was his silence. But in that stillness, he realigned, not to win again, but to love the game again. When he returned, he didn't chase greatness, he embodied it. Steady the heart and aim from purpose. And so too with the general. The lesson of the court is the lesson of the battlefield. Alignment over ambition. Purpose over pride. He learned that alignment is not perfection. It's harmony between chaos and clarity, purpose and patience. And when those forces meet, a warrior evolves. He no longer feared the fall because he knew what waited on the other side of surrender. Power with peace. Realignment is the moment a warrior stops chasing who they were and starts embodying who they were meant to be. When failure breaks you, it doesn't destroy your aim. It reveals where it never was true. Realignment is where you stop chasing the world's targets and start aiming for your own truth. And so the journey continues, not backward, but forward through the self. When the heart steadies, the warrior rises. When the aim aligns with purpose, evolution begins. This is the realignment, the pivot between failure and evolution. If this story shifted something in you, the next one will take it deeper. Don't just subscribe, train with us. Start your next evolution here.
Awaken, evolve, the journey continues. Fall, acknowledge, investigate, learn, understand, realign. And next, in Episode 7, Evolve, the Warrior's Reward.